For years, the truth stayed hidden, the victims forgotten, the cases left cold, until science revealed what time could not. This is decades in the dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. She's barefoot, her feet already torn from the underbrush. A thin blouse clings to her skin, ripped, soaked in sweat, and half-buttoned. She's not wearing pants, just underwear, no coat, no shoes. The Alaskan wind slices through the trees like a blade. Behind her, a man, calm, focused, holding a rifle. He tells her to run. Her eyes scan the trees. There's nowhere to go, no one to hear her scream. She's been out here for hours, maybe more. He's already told her what happens next. Still, she runs. Branches whip her legs. Her breath comes in gasps. Every snapping twig sounds like a footstep. Every second, she wonders if the next will be her last. Then, a shot. She falls. The man approaches, slowly. He's not rushing. He never does. He kneels beside her, sets the rifle down, and pulls out a Polaroid camera. He frames the shot. Click. This is how he hunts. This is how he keeps them forever, and she's just one of many. In 1980, a hunter in the Alaskan wilderness made a grisly discovery. On the banks of the Nick River, he found the partially buried body of a young woman. She had been gunned down while running for her life, shot in the back and left with no identification. The only clues? 2 necklaces, one with a heart-shaped pendant, the other a circular medallion with ornate scrollwork, and a .223 caliber bullet casing. The body was labeled Eklutna Annie, for the nearby road where she was found. No one knew who she was, or who had dumped her in the remote brush. She wouldn't be the last. Over the next few years, more bodies would surface in the same area. Women who'd vanished from Anchorage's streets. All young, all vulnerable, all murdered. But the killer wasn't done. By day, Robert Hansen was a soft-spoken baker, a family man, known around Anchorage for his handmade pastries and quiet demeanor. But behind closed doors, Hansen was a predator. Born in 1939, Hansen moved to Anchorage, Alaska in 1967 when he was just 28 years old. He opened a bakery 2 years later, blending into the community with his wife and 2 children. But beneath the surface, he carried the weight of a lifelong grudge. He had a stutter that made him the target of bullies in his youth. He nursed deep resentment toward women, especially those he perceived as rejecting or humiliating him. That resentment turned into a dark fantasy, and in the isolation of Alaska, it turned into something far worse. By his early 30s, Hansen was committing assaults. In 1971, he was arrested for abducting and attempting to rape a woman, but a judge sentenced him to just 5 years. He served 6 months. A psychologist claimed he was rehabilitated. It was a fatal mistake. By his 40s, Hansen was hunting women. He built a secret cabin in the wilderness, collected weapons, learned to hunt big game. He wasn't just a casual outdoorsman. Hansen was a trophy-winning hunter, featured in hunting magazines. He tracked bears, moose, and eventually, women. Hansen's victims were often young women, many of them dancers or sex workers in Anchorage. He'd offer them money for a photo shoot or a private session. If they agreed, he would drive them back to his house, and once inside, he'd pull a gun. He would tie them up, assault them, and hold them captive in his basement, sometimes for hours or even overnight. He waited until his wife and children were out of town, often visiting relatives, before bringing victims to his home. He planned every detail. He targeted women he thought no one would look for. Runaways, sex workers, those on the margins. Disposable, in his eyes. Easy to vanish. Easy to forget. Then he'd tell them they were going on a trip. Robert Hansen wasn't just a hunter. He was also a licensed pilot. He owned a Piper Super Cub, a small bush plane capable of landing on gravel bars, riverbeds, and forest clearings. With it, he could fly deep into Alaska's remote wilderness, places no one could reach. Once they were in the sky, his victims were as good as gone. He always hunted in the daylight, when he could see every movement, every broken branch, every footstep in the brush. He used the sun and silence to his advantage, like stalking moose or bear. Sometimes he'd let the chase stretch on for hours, tracking his victim as she stumbled through miles of forest, exhausted and terrified, until he was ready to end it. Some never made it past his basement. He killed them there, quietly, efficiently, before they ever saw the woods. Others, he gave them a head start, and then he hunted them like animals. One of Hansen's victims was Sherry Morrow, a 23-year-old dancer who disappeared in November 1981. Weeks later, her body was found near the Knik River, gunned down while running for her life, her hands bound. Her blouse had been pulled up, but there was no evidence of sexual assault. Investigators believe this was Hansen's signature, a way to degrade and humiliate his victims, even after death. A chilling mixture of control, ritual, and cruelty. The scene told a story of domination and fear, and like the others, Sherry had been hunted. Detectives now had a pattern, but no suspect. Another was Paula Goulding, a 30-year-old aspiring actress who'd recently moved to Alaska. She vanished in 1983, her body later found in a shallow grave. Her remains showed signs of bullet wounds, and like Sherry, she had been partially undressed, but not sexually violated. Hansen wasn't just killing, he was performing a ritual. The case might have remained unsolved, if not for Cindy Paulson. In June 1983, Cindy, a 17-year-old sex worker, was approached by a nervous, balding man with a stutter. He offered her $200 for a sex act, but once inside his car, he pulled a gun. He took her to his home, chained her in the basement, and brutally assaulted her. Then he told her he was flying her to his cabin in the wilderness, the same ritual he had used with so many others. But Cindy fought back. At Merrill Field Airport, while Hansen was preparing the plane, Cindy escaped, barefoot, handcuffed, and bleeding, and ran to a truck driver who called police. She told them everything, and they didn't believe her. Detectives initially dismissed Cindy's story. Hansen had an alibi. He was respected, a baker, a husband. But one investigator, Detective Glenn Floth, wasn't convinced. He started digging, and what he found was chilling. Years earlier, Hansen had been convicted of assault and theft. His home, when searched, revealed a map of the Alaskan wilderness. Hand-drawn and marked with X's. There were 24 X's total. Some matched bodies already discovered. Others led police to new burial sites they hadn't even found yet. Then came the trophies. Investigators found dozens of pieces of women's jewelry, rings, necklaces, and keepsakes, hidden in his attic. Each one had likely belonged to a missing woman. He didn't just kill, he kept reminders. They also uncovered a .223 caliber rifle, the same caliber used in several of the murders. It would later match the bullet casings found near Sherry Morrow and Paula Goulding. And then there were the photos. Dozens of Polaroids, some showing women bound and terrified during captivity. Others posed after death in disturbing, degrading ways. Some victims were partially clothed, others appeared lifeless, laid out as if for display. A few of the women in the photos were never identified. Hansen wasn't just killing, he was documenting his control, reliving the fear, preserving the moment. The evidence was overwhelming, and it would finally force him to confess. Confronted with the evidence, Robert Hansen confessed. He admitted to abducting, raping, and murdering 17 women, though investigators believe the number could be closer to 30 or more. He explained how he'd fly them deep into the woods, how he gave them a head start, how he hunted them, because it made him feel powerful. He showed no real remorse. To this day, some of Hansen's victims remain unidentified. Eklutna Annie still has no name, and no family to claim her, but others finally got theirs. In 1984, the remains of a woman were found near Horseshoe Lake, badly decomposed and buried in a shallow grave. With no ID, no name, and few clues, investigators referred to her as Horseshoe Harriet. Then in 2021, using forensic genealogy, she was identified as Robin Pelkey, a 19-year-old girl originally from Arkansas who had been living on the streets of Anchorage when Hansen abducted her. Her name gave closure, but not peace. She was one of the youngest and most forgotten of Hansen's known victims. Hansen died in 2014, serving 461 years in prison, a monster who wore the face of a mild-mannered baker. They were not forgotten, and they never will be. For years, the truth stayed buried beneath the Alaskan snow, but science, and a single survivor's courage, brought it into the light. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more true stories where justice never expires. And if you'd like to help support the channel, you can now buy me a coffee. Link in the description.